それではここからはニュージーランド側よりニュージーランドにおける武道文化の紹介を行います。では進行をニュージーランド側にお渡しいたします。
So now we're going to hand the baton back over to New Zealand and continue with the demonstrations over there.
Thank you very much. So before we get back to the demonstrations, we have a presentation we'd like to show you, talking about the history and the current state of Budo culture in New Zealand. はい、こちらですね、まずは、ニュージーランドの、における武道文化の歴史と現状についての、映像をご覧いただきたいと思います。どうぞ。
Like in most countries around the world, Japanese martial arts have become an integral part of New Zealand's contemporary cultural and sports scene. New Zealand boasts its own hand-to-hand martial arts heritage, that which was developed by the Māori long before European settlement, but it is the Asian influence that is predominant in the martial arts scene and studied in New Zealand today. Japanese martial arts, or Budo, are practiced by people from all walks of life and all ages in New Zealand. Currently, the most significant discipline in terms of numbers is karate, followed by judo and aikido. Disciplines such as kendo and most other mainstream modern Japanese Budo are also present. Kobudo, or classical martial arts traditions, can also be found in New Zealand. But when and why did it all start? An early and ongoing channel through which martial arts were showcased to New Zealanders was through Japanese naval visits to New Zealand ports. From the visit to Auckland by HIJMS Hie and Kongo in 1902 onwards, it appears that crews put on displays of martial arts, among other things, to entertain their hosts with examples of Japanese culture. An entertainment was given which evinced considerable interest, consisting of wrestling, fencing, and musical selections. This may have been the first ever official display of Japanese martial arts in New Zealand, and Japanese naval visits continued to be much anticipated events in the early decades of the 20th century. The Auckland Star reports on hundreds of schoolboys who invaded the Japanese mercantile training ship Shintokumaru when the vessel was specially thrown open for their inspection in 1933. Exhibitions of kendo and judo were given on the King's Wharf, where the training ship is berthed, and the spectators applauded heartily. In kendo, the contestants, heavily padded and wearing metal masks and black hoods and gowns, revived memories of the most virulent days of the KKK. At times, they emitted strange noises that resembled the bark of a dog, but it was not difficult to judge from their utterances and actions when points had been scored. The Japan Maritime Self-Defense Force still visits New Zealand to this day, and personnel occasionally engage in joint Budo training in judo or kendo with locals. The first hands-on experience with Japanese martial arts in New Zealand started with a trickle-down from Europe and the United States. Jiujitsu migrated to New Zealand in the early 20th century, 5 decades before any other Japanese martial arts did. The first proof of actual practitioners in New Zealand is an advertisement for lessons in Christchurch's press. Mr. Tankard, having received instruction in this remarkable system from a Japanese teacher in London, is now holding classes for children and adults. A weak heart and poor lungs, safely and surely strengthened by this system. Specialist for spinal curvature. Medical cases, send for prospectus. The school, corner of Gloucester Street and Oxford Terrace. Also located in Christchurch was Hornibrook's Physical Cultural Institute, situated in Cathedral Square, which taught jiujitsu from 1909, along with various wrestling styles. From around this time, jiu-jitsu clubs were founded in sports centres in Auckland and Wellington as well. Interestingly, Christchurch was the city in which the first full-time Japanese teacher of jiu-jitsu, Fukushima Ryugoro, or Rei Shima as he was known, eventually settled down. He came to New Zealand around 1906 and travelled Australasia with vaudeville groups as a jiu-jitsu performer until 1914. Actually, entertainment played a crucial role in popularising jiu-jitsu. In 1905, Fitzgerald's Circus from Australia featured 6 Japanese jiu-jitsu specialists who captivated audiences with their wrestling techniques. From 1906 to 1914, these experts travelled the country showcasing their skills and engaging in matches that blended traditional wrestling with jiu-jitsu. As jiu-jitsu was setting down roots nationwide in the first 2 decades of the 20th century in private salons and the entertainment and professional fighting circuit, there were certain individuals in particular who stood out for their contributions to promoting the art to the masses. For example, Lieutenant Colonel David Cosgrove published Peace Scouting for Girls in 1910, in which he extols the benefits of jiu-jitsu as an exceptional means of self-defense for girls. One great advantage of the Japanese method of training, he said, is that no apparatus is required, nor any special room for the practice. Once the muscles have been formed, they do not disappear again when you give up the practices. In fact, the Girl Peace Scouts may well have been the first national organisation in any country to have officially introduced Japanese self-defense techniques specifically for girls, and in this sense was quite a groundbreaking addition to the growing body of literature on jiu-jitsu in the West. One of the most colourful jiu-jitsu exponents in New Zealand was the entertainer Florence Lamar, otherwise known as Flossie. The only lady jiu-jitsu expert in the Southern Hemisphere, as she was known, she and her husband, Joe Gardner, who studied under several Japanese experts in London, wrote The Life and Adventures of Miss Florence Lamar, the world's famous jiu-jitsu girl. It was published in Wellington in 1913. It explains how to execute the techniques of jiu-jitsu, the theory that underlies them, and how the philosophy of jiu-jitsu can be applied to enhance all facets of one's daily life. It is one of the earliest books on martial arts in the world that amalgamates the technique, philosophy, and holistic benefits of jiu-jitsu with a degree of feminist ideology. In addition to their acclaimed performances on stage, they also taught jiu-jitsu to the public wherever they went throughout New Zealand. Perhaps the most unique individual to promote Japanese martial arts in New Zealand was Captain Leopold McLaglen. In 1915, British showman and soldier Captain McLaglen instructed New Zealand soldiers in new forms of bayonet fighting that incorporated jiu-jitsu throws. He was also instrumental in introducing jiu-jitsu into boys' schools, such as Otago Boys High. There were a number of secondary schools throughout the country that taught jiu-jitsu to both girls and boys in the 1920s and 1930s. It is possible that McLaglen's legacy lived on in this way long after he departed the country, and that he pioneered a way for future instructors to teach jiu-jitsu to youth. J.B. Adams, for example, although not a student of McLaglen, followed his example and conducted classes for hundreds of pupils at the Auckland Grammar School, Mount Albert Grammar School, Auckland Girls Grammar School, Seddon Memorial Technical College, and Hodohuhu Technical High School, as well as for the YMCA and the Defence Department. He even made an application to the Minister of Education, the Honourable P. Fraser, to have jiujitsu instruction included in the school curriculum. Jiujitsu became a firmly entrenched and lauded system of self-defence and health maintenance in New Zealand. It was taught to girls and boys in youth groups in schools, at community clubs nationwide, in the military to prison guards and to the police. When women were first admitted into the police force in 1941, the 10 recruits were instructed in jiujitsu to ensure that they had the skills to apprehend criminals and defend themselves in the case of retaliation. Starting from the 1940s, New Zealanders became more familiar with Asian cultures. Soldiers who were sent to Japan in the post-war period picked up judo and continued when they arrived back home in New Zealand. New Zealand's inaugural judo club was established in Auckland in 1948. Later on, Dutch and English immigrants, some with military backgrounds in Asia, founded clubs in Christchurch in 1953 and then Wellington in 1955. The 1950s saw a rise in judo's popularity. By 1956, a National Judo Federation was formed and national competitions took place the following year. Napier saw the establishment of New Zealand's first karate club in 1958. A number of Kiwi enthusiasts went to Japan to study karate directly from the masters, and the first national karate championships were held in 1967. And starting from the 1970s, a rising fascination with Asian cultures and increased Asian immigration to New Zealand spurred a greater interest in the martial arts. The fitness boom of the 1980s further propelled this trend. Martial arts components were integrated into gym workouts, leading some individuals to pursue these disciplines in a more dedicated manner. For many, including women and children, the self-defense benefits of martial arts were a key attraction. Now, all 9 Budo arts associated with the Japanese Association of Budo are practiced in New Zealand. In terms of numbers, karate is by far the most numerous, followed by judo, aikido, kendo, kyudo, sumo, shorinji kempo, naginata, and more recently, ju-kendo. The practicality and philosophy embedded in Japanese Budo are attractive to many New Zealanders. While martial arts like judo and karate offer physical skills that are useful for self-defense, they also embody a deeper philosophical essence that emphasizes discipline, respect, and continuous self-improvement. Such values resonate with many who seek a balanced approach to physical fitness and mental fortitude.
今日、日本の武道はニュージーランドで割と盛んに行われています。で、それは単にスポーツや、フィットネスや護身術としてだけではなく、精神的、また哲学的な道のりとして、多くの人々に豊かさを与えています。ニュージーランドにおける武道の発展や適用は、日本とニュージーランドの架け橋となって、相互理解とリスペクトを育んでいます。
Bloody hell, mate.
ニュージーランドの皆様、ありがとうございました。